We build an 18 parlay with every NFL division winner and tell you how you can take home $1,000 in just 10 minutes this NFL season, and it all starts right now. What's going on, everyone? It's Matt from Grandstand Bettors, and this is part 7 of our 8-part series where we build a parlay with every NFL division winner for the 2022-23 NFL season. And make sure you stick around to the end of the video because we're going to tell you how you can take home $1,000 this NFL season. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, because it is time to talk about the NFC South. And in last place in the NFC South, we're going to take the Atlanta Falcons. This one, really a no-brainer to us, as this team is quite behind everybody else in the division. The first area of concern is at quarterback. Sure, Marcus Mariota has been a bright spot sometimes in the league during his career, but overall, he is certainly not the long-term solution for this team. And this season, he's not the guy that's going to lead the team to the playoffs. Another reason for that is the offense is lacking a lot of talent. They have managed to lose Julio Jones, Russell Gage, and Calvin Ridley in the past 2 seasons. Now, albeit Ridley was because of suspension, but their starting receivers together in this league that they have on the team have only played a combined 5 years, and in those 5 years, they only have 1,500 receiving yards total. Now, another issue they have is their running game. Patterson led this team in rushing last season with 618 rushing yards. They were 31st in the NFL with only 85 rushing yards per game. Now, the one bright spot, though, they do have is at tight end, and that's certainly Kyle Pitts, who was drafted in the first round in last year's draft and had 1,000 receiving yards last season. Besides that, though, there's not too much to look forward to with this team other than possibly maybe Desmond Ridder, who they drafted in the 3rd round out of Cincinnati, but he really hasn't shown us anything in training camp or in the preseason games that he's going to excel here in the NFL. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, things are not much better. They gave up 364 yards per game and were 29th in points, giving up 27 points per game last season. They also had only 20 takeaways last year, and they lost their best defensive player in free agency. Now, this could be a long year for this team, and they could be in the running for a first overall draft pick in next year's draft by the end of the season. So, sorry, Falcons fans. It's going to be a rough one this year. Now, in 3rd place in the NFC South, we're going to take the New Orleans Saints. And after almost making the playoffs last year, right after they lost franchise quarterback Drew Brees, the Saints have now lost their coach, Sean Payton. So it's going to be a relatively fresh start for this team in 2022. With Jameis Winston back in the lineup at QB, they will hopefully have some more stability at that position after they cycled through 4 different quarterbacks over the course of last season. Now, Michael Thomas also back, and the addition of Jarvis Landry and rookie wide receiver Chris Olave out of Ohio State, they are going to have a much better wide receiver core this season after they only averaged 187 passing yards per game, which was worst in the NFL in 2021. Now, at running back, with Kamara's suspension situation still up in the air, they're going to need Melvin Ingram to be ready to go if this offense is going to have to compete. And listen, they're going to have to compete with the running game. Kamara only had 898 rushing yards last season and 4 touchdowns after a huge 2020 season. Their offensive line certainly played a role in this as they took a step back last season. But if their offense is not able to put up steady numbers, they luckily do have a solid defense, which should keep them in most games this season. Over the course of last year, they ranked 7th in yards given up per game, 4th in run defense, and they only gave up 19.7 points per game, which was 4th best in the NFL. The one issue we do see is going to be their secondary. They ranked 14th in pass defense last year and lost both of their safeties in free agency. They're going to have a relatively brand new secondary this season and they seem to be placing a lot of trust in Tyrann Mathieu to lead this team, which in our opinion is just not going to turn out well. So look for the Saints to have a better year, but just fall short of the playoffs yet again. Now in second place in the NFC South, we're going to take the Carolina Panthers. They had a rough season last year with Sam Darnold at quarterback and another season filled with McCaffrey injury issues. This year seems to be different for the Panthers, though. They picked up Baker Mayfield, who's going to be on a revenge tour this season, starting week 1 against his former team, the Browns. And Christian McCaffrey does look 100% again after he had a long off season to recover. Now, with wide receivers DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, and a couple rookies they drafted in this year's draft, this team has some sneaky weapons, which if Mayfield has a good season, they could surprise a lot of people. The other big move they had this offseason was revamping that offensive line. They should be much better at protecting the quarterback this year, and this is essentially going to help McCaffrey as well get out of the backfield a little bit more frequently and not have to sustain those huge hits from the big linemen. Defensively, the Panthers were solid last season. They gave up second least yards per game, only behind the Bills. They had the 4th best pass defense and ranked 18th in run defense. They also made a huge pickup by signing linebacker Damian Wilson from the Jaguars and safety Xavier Woods from the Vikings. Alongside Shaq Thompson, who was a tackling machine last season, they're going to have a very good defense again in the middle of the field, and it is a defense to watch out for, in our opinion, this season. With an easier schedule than the Saints, we see the Panthers beating them out here for the second spot in the NFC South and potentially making a late run for the playoffs as they have their bye week coming in week 13, and then after that, games against Seattle, Detroit, Pittsburgh, and New Orleans to end the season. So as much as it pains us being Browns fans, it looks like Baker Mayfield might have a shot to sneak in to the playoffs this season. So with no surprise, that only leaves us the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to win the NFC South for the second season in a row. And after a disappointing loss to the Rams in the postseason, the Bucs front office, they had a mini heart attack when it seemed like Tom Brady was finally going to hang up the towel. Fortunately for them, he came back to play another season, and they are ridiculously stacked at wide receiver now. They have Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Julio Jones, Russell Gage, along with a very dependable running back in Leonard Fournette. They should have no problem putting up points again this season as they averaged the second best last year at 30.1 points per game. Now, the one issue they had last season, though, was depth at the offensive line. Donald got to Brady what seemed like almost every play in that playoff game last season, and with only one major addition at right guard, it will be interesting to see if this is their Achilles heel again this year. The other issue they had last season was their secondary. They gave up 238 passing yards per game, and that's really what cost them the game against the Rams. In that game, Stafford threw for 366 yards and 2 touchdowns, and they let Cooper Kupp rack up 183 receiving yards on them. This has to be a point of emphasis this season, or else it's going to be depending on Tom Brady to win them games in the fourth quarter. And this guy someday isn't going to be able to be playing like a 20-year-old, is he? At the end of the day, though, the Bucs do have Tom Brady, and they are insanely stacked on the offensive side of the ball, which is hard for us to bet against, which is why we are going to take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to win the NFC South at minus 270. Now, if you're keeping track at home, that gives us 7 of our 8-team parlay. We now have the Bills, Ravens, Colts, Chargers, Eagles, Packers, and now Bucks. And that would make the 17 parlay plus 122.67. So you're getting about 122 to 1 odds. Our final part will be coming out here in just a couple days. Make sure, again, you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss our massive parlay, which is over 250 to 1 odds. Before we sign off, though, we promised you how you could take home $1,000 in 10 minutes this NFL season. And the answer is pretty easy. Just head on over to grandstandbetters.com, sign up for our NFL betting contest. It's absolutely free. Let me say that again. Our free NFL betting contest. You're going to take 30 seconds each week and pick 5 games against the spread. And if you're on top of that leaderboard after week 18, you're going to be taking home $1,000. It's as simple as that. The link's in the description. Go do that now because all registrations are frozen on September 11th at 1 p.m. As always, though, sit back, relax, enjoy some time off here before we kick off for the NFL season, which is only 10 days away.